Good morning, everyone. I'm Andrew. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Klarity. I'm so excited to spend the whole day today talking about how AI can help you massively accelerate finance transformation and ultimately bend the G&A curve. The AI tsunami is coming, and I'm sure you recognize this picture. It's the most famous picture of a tsunami in the world. But everyone typically focuses on the tsunami itself, not the rest of the picture. But what I see when I look at the rest of the picture, I see something extremely important. More important than the tsunami itself. It's how people are reacting to it. Let's zoom in. It's a bunch of people on boats bracing for the impact from the tsunami. And that's the prevalent emotion that I'm hearing when talking to CFOs, chief accounting officers, controllers, and heads of finance transformation every single day. Most folks right now are bracing for the impact. And they're bracing for impact because they're on the wrong side of the tsunami. But what if instead of bracing for it, you can ride it like this? Riding a tsunami will get you further and faster than you can imagine, crushing everything in your way, turning the biggest risk our businesses are facing today in the biggest opportunity in the last 150 years. So what will the AI tsunami actually do? What will it look like? It will clearly segregate companies into two buckets: linear companies on one side and exponential companies on the other side. Let's talk about what those actually are. This is what a linear company looks like. And most companies look like this. As you grow and scale your revenue, your OpEx linearly follows your revenue growth curve. This is what an exponential company looks like. While revenue is growing, exponential companies are able to keep their OpEx flat or grow much slower than linearly compared to their revenue. So ultimately, exponential companies bend the G&A curve. That's what we're talking about today. Here's the advantage if you merge those two graphs together. Here's what linear versus exponential cost structure gives you. It gives you a massive capital allocation advantage. At exponential companies, every single employee is highly leveraged, producing an average of 15 times more output than at linear companies. Do you want to know what this looks like? Imagine your best employee, the most valuable team member that you have. Take a minute and imagine them. Put them in this frame. And then imagine that they're 15 times more productive than they're today. They can do 15 times more work than they can do today. And that's why exponential companies win. And at this point, you're probably thinking, this is a unicorn, it's not real, it's going to take a while, it's going to take a couple of years. But the AI tsunami is closer than you think. And I actually want to start by talking about real-world examples from the R&D space, not G&A. We're going to get there in a minute, but start in talking about R&D because the tsunami arrived a little bit earlier there already. And I want to take you on a tale of two tech companies. And since we're all finance professionals here, their R&D cost ratios. Two tech companies that we all know, but I will not tell you who they are until the very end. It's one company that's being swept by the tsunami and one company riding it. And we start our tale at two different earnings calls about a week apart from each other in August last year. Company number one is spending 49.5% of their revenue on R&D. Company number two is spending 15.4%. But this is not coming at the expense of innovation and building new product. They're actually shipping more product than they have before. And when we talk about R&D spend, what it really means for tech companies is just writing code. And LLMs are particularly good at writing code. But here's the trend, and this is the really important piece. So company number one actually added to their R&D spend as a cost ratio of revenue, 0.3%. Company number two used AI to write off 9% and actually increase the product velocity at the same time. This is what the R&D spend as a percentage of revenue looks like over time. The top red line is company number one. The bottom green line is company number two. You can see that they were actually pretty close to each other at the start of Q3 2023, when company two started to use AI to write code. And here's what they've done in 1 quarter when they announced the results. The R&D spend dramatically decreased within the quarter. And we're not talking about small companies here. We're talking about public, multi-billion ARR companies. 1 quarter is super fast. And this is where we're today. The advantage keeps on growing. Just imagine the volume of capital between those two curves that you're free to allocate however you want. And imagine how much more resilient company number two is in this case of uncertainty like we're experiencing right now. And so at this point, you're probably thinking, OK, I get it. That's for the company itself. But what does it mean for me? Right? I came to the summit. I want to learn. What does it mean for me? Not my company, but me. Well, let me tell you about the investor reaction. Company number one, the stock price dropped by 17% in 1 day. Company number two, the stock price jumped by 18% in 1 day. That's the market sentiment talking to us. Can you guess who these companies are? Do you already know? It's Shopify and Atlassian. We chose those two because neither of them is a Klarity customer, so we can be objective here. And we're talking about their R&D spend, right? This is not what we're here for. We're here for G&A. But we're showing that as an example of the tsunami that's already coming through R&D and what to expect in G&A. And so why the jump? Like, what was the actual market sentiment or investor sentiment that got us here? It's the trajectory. Here's some investor notes or analyst notes. For Shopify, JP Morgan wrote, the company is now a rule of more than 40 thanks to AI-enabled cost ratios. AI-enabled cost ratios. It's the key phrase here. For Atlassian, said with R&D still roughly half of sales, the cost trajectory is out of sync with investor appetite for efficiency. I'm a CEO of a venture-backed company, so I deal with investors a lot. And I have a lot of empathy for the Atlassian team. They come in every day and work as hard and as smart as they can to operate their business. And investors critique with their words and dollars. And all of us in the room, apart from the few investors with the thin white lanyards, have to operate our business every single day. But the hard reality that we live in is that investors reward bending the G&A curve and driving scalable growth. So how do we do it for G&A? So what are the learnings from the R&D tsunami that's a little bit ahead that we can apply in G&A? It's two things. Having a really strong AI narrative and driving cost efficiency. That's where Klarity comes in. Let's take a look what we delivered in G&A with our very first product that has been in the market for 5 years now. It's called Klarity Automate. We launched it in the middle of the pandemic in 2020. And here are some of the case studies for value that we delivered to our customers. For CrowdStrike, we automated their booking review, and they kept their headcount flat for the last 2 years, while their order volume grew by 2.4x. talking about bending the G&A curve. For DoorDash, when we first started working with them, they were reviewing 19% of their contracts for ASC 606 assurance. Now they're doing 100% at 2x the revenue. And there's one more case study with a very large private company that I want to share with you. I don't have any fancy graphics for this one, because Jackie from the team summarized it the best in just a very few words. Klarity enables us to do twice the work in half the time. That's 4x speed increase. And again, bending the G&A curve. And these are incredible results. And these are results by teams that are actually present here. I think they deserve a big round of applause. But I have to be honest with you. The reality is that the path, the process to get to those results is pretty tough. Could be painful, could be long and expensive. And we realize that in today's world, moving at AI speed, especially remember how much change was there in 1 quarter, and seeing those R&D examples and how quickly they're moving, we wanted to build something that will actually help you transform faster, transform better, transform cheaper, transform more confidently. And so we looked at what the definition of transformation is, because we realized that's the business that we're in. So it turns out that transformation in the enterprise context is comprehensive reconfiguration of organizational capabilities to achieve strategic operational excellence. We didn't understand it, so we thought about it again. It was quite a mouthful. So apparently, transformation is the comprehensive reconfiguration of organizational capabilities to achieve strategic operational excellence. Change. This sounds long, and it sounds painful. And so we ask, why is that? Because businesses constantly need to realign to changing market conditions, how they sell their products, what they're selling. And so it turns out that there are really 2 reasons why it's long and painful. Number one is the bandwidth and resources are pretty limited. Actually, let's take a minute. Who feels like they have all the headcount that they need, all the budget that they need to achieve their strategic objectives? Hands up. I can't see if it's on the balcony, but I don't see any hands up, so I just assume there are no hands up. And the reason is because most transformation efforts really happen 1 interview at a time, trying to understand how you do your work. So it looks like this. And then it needs to happen 2,000 times over, right? Because you need to understand the whole value chain or the whole value stream. The other issue is that business is constantly evolving as you're trying to transform it. So the transformation timeline is out of whack with the needs and the speed of the business. So it looks a little bit like this. This is what a good transformation timeline looks like. You start by organizing your value streams. That's going to take you about a month. Then you think through your strategic plan and how to align it with your company's objective. That's another month right there. This is the big one. Then you spend a massive amount of time documenting and understanding how the process, how the business actually works today. This often takes at least 2 to 3 months to just capture the current state and understand the current state. And then you need to design the future state. That's when you talk to all of the other teams, all of your colleagues, and try to figure out, what do we want the future to look like? It's at least another month. And then, finally, you can actually start executing on your transformation efforts and transformation plans and get ROI. That's 6 months to prepare for a transformation project for 1 value stream. And so by the time you're prepared, the ground has already shifted. It's 6 months of prep. And so oftentimes what happens is this. You start a transformation for order to cash. Meanwhile, something breaks in procure to pay. Then you try to fix that. Something breaks. There's a new fire in hard to retire. And so you kind of switch between and you try to get everything and tie everything together. We thought to ourselves, there has to be a better way. It has to be a faster way. 6 months is just way too long. And that's why we built the architect, to make it 2 weeks, 14 days. That's days and weeks, not months and years. So you can actually focus on getting execution and achieving the ROI. As we all know, that's the really, really, really hard part. And so what we realized, that the biggest needle mover that we can actually build is to help with transformation. Fix transformation to make it easy, fast, and always successful. And here's a sneak peek on what it enabled some of our incredible customers to achieve just in the last 2 to 3 months. And I know that I haven't told you yet what we've built and how we're doing this. That's my co-founder's job. He's going to come up here soon. But I'm going to share a couple of real stories. I can't tell you which ones are just yet, but most of them are here today, right? I know that Gordon and Brad from DoorDash are somewhere around here. The Stripe team is here. Jason from Tyler Tech is here. Angelina from Redis is here. Daniel from JLL is here. Thank you for traveling all the way from Chicago. Maven, Mercury, and many others. And I actually encourage everybody to talk to them and hear what they have to say. Here's the sneak peek. Company number 1 understood how 117 of their processes across source to pay and a couple of other adjacent areas work, saved about $400,000, and did it in, I believe, about 6 weeks. There's company number 2. They documented 667 processes, actually understood how these roll up and how they're working across about 40, 45 different value streams, saved about $750,000. That's like getting close to $1 million, just the last 2 months. And company number 3, this is a great one. Company number 3 documented and understood 435 different processes across their accounting operations in 19 days. For the first time in history in enterprise transformation, many books have been written about this, we're measuring transformation in days, not months, years, quarters, none of that, days. And the savings are already over $1 million. Look at these incredible results. I think they speak for themselves. And all of this happened since February in beta. So these are early results. So big thank you for everybody who participated. And I'm extremely happy for these companies. But I want to focus again, what does it mean for every single one of you and why you came today? What we want to do is we want to equip you to ride the tsunami rather than being swept by it. So you can go further and faster than you could ever imagine before. And so as I conclude, I want to ask you one question. Just think about it. Since unlimited transformation is possible as of today, it's no longer a scarce resource. It's possible as of today. What will you do with it? What impact will you drive this quarter? In the next days, weeks, maybe a couple of months, not 2 years from now. And my team and I are super excited to meet with every single one of you today and talk about how can we help to bring your vision to life. And now I'm excited to welcome my co-founder Nischal to the stage, and he will tell you everything about what we've built and how we built it to make unlimited transformation possible. Let's talk today. Thank you so much.
Hey, everybody. Great to see you all. Thank you again for making it out here. I'm Nischal. I'm Andrew's co-founder and CTO. I'm here to tell you how we can actually realize this vision of bending the G&A curve using our product, the Klarity Architect. So before we go too far into this, just a quick recap on what this product does. We realize that process documentation is one of the biggest gaps in enterprise today. You need it to run every single process, every value stream. It's extremely unsexy, but so, so important and very difficult to build good documentation. So that was the genesis of the architect. We discovered that for the first time, we could simply take a video as input, and that could be a video of somebody recording themselves doing a process like a desktop procedure. It could be a team meeting. It could be a 3-hour Zoom shouting match. We've all been on 1 or 2 of those. And for the first time, we could just use AI to take that video, have the AI watch it like a human analyst would, and spit out really high-quality documentation. So that was the core idea behind the architect. And that documentation could be anything. It could be an SOP to capture current state. It could be a business requirements document. It could be a PDD. It could be a SOX narrative. It could be a flowchart. It's really an open-ended documentation tool. So to show you some examples of how this actually looks in action, these are all outputs actually generated by the AI. So this is an example of how it's able to capture a narrative in a lot of detail. And again, because it's able to both watch the video and see what's happening, as well as listen, it can give you this really nice interplay between screenshots and a narrative of what's happening. And we found that it excels on highly detailed processes. If we have a 3-hour video of revenue recognition, it can really understand everything that's happening. It's the first AI platform that can actually build enterprise-grade flow diagrams, complete with swim lanes and all of the complexity of your processes, conditional branches. It even lets you edit it, so you can put on the finishing touches really quickly and easily. But it goes beyond just telling you what your current state is. It can actually put on its judgment hat and identify pain points in your processes, even if you didn't articulate them. It's using its own judgment, its own understanding, to draw these conclusions of where the pain points are. It can compare processes to each other. Let's say we want to compare how invoice processing in US and EMEA are step by step. It can break those two down and build a report comparing them to one another. And then finally, it'll go beyond just finding pain points for you. It can actually propose solutions. Where can we deploy automation? Where can we streamline a process? Where can we maybe upskill people? And so it can actually make thought-through recommendations of how to evolve your processes, not just documenting where they are today. So that's what the architect does. But to come back to the vision that Andrew painted, how does this relate to transformation and bending the G&A curve? What I just showed you is a documentation tool. What we found with our early customers is the #1 value for them was a massive compression of time that it takes to build this documentation. What they told us is that before the architect, on average, it would take 10 to 30 hours to create a single high-quality document like an SOP. I don't know if any of you have had the misfortune of being the one to write one of these documents. Knowing my audience, I'm sure you've done this. I certainly have. And that checks out. Like, it does take that amount of time to write the first draft, to get it reviewed, to talk to the other stakeholders, and to finalize it. It is incredibly time-consuming to do this work, but of course, it's so important to have good documentation. And what our customers found is by using the architect, they're able to do this whole thing in between 35 to 45 minutes, something like that. The majority of that time was actually just spent creating the video, and all that had to be is a really quick walkthrough of the process, about 15 to 30 minutes. After that, the architect would just create this document in about 5 minutes. It was really that quick, and then all you need to do is put the finishing touches on it. And so what used to take 10 to 30 hours was now taking them 30 minutes to an hour, more than a 10x compression in the amount of time that it took. This interesting phenomenon started to occur, where we saw usage volumes massively spiking across many organizations within our customer base. Frankly, we were surprised. Why are customers generating so many documents in a day? How can they be getting so much utility out of process documentation such that they're investing so much time? We had one customer that did 100 SOPs in one day. Let that sink in. It is such a departure from what was possible before. And again, it made us wonder, what are they doing with these 100 SOPs that leaves them wanting to actually create them in the first place? What they told us was that there was one team, or a set of similar teams, that were driving this. It was the transformation and the operational excellence teams that were kind of at the helm, pushing for these documents to be created. So when we asked them, well, why do you care so much about having these documents created? The answer that they gave us was because these process documents, with the level of quality the architect was able to give them, gave them an effective digital twin of that entire value stream for their part of the organization that they were trying to transform. So for the first time, the tedious task of creating documentation had been solved to such an extent that they were able to use that as a digital twin representation. And what they then did is use that digital twin to start to analyze it, design future state, and then unlock that execution and ultimately achieving ROI as part of the transformation project. So what we realized through this experience is that the current state documentation was the #1 bottleneck, and the architect was allowing them to completely remove that bottleneck. We realized that if we could effectively scale up current state capture for all companies, we could massively accelerate transformation projects. And so that's the mission that we set out on. How can we accelerate current state capture? We found that there's a missing piece in our vision. Most companies that we talk to have some videos recorded, and I'm sure this is the case with you. Post-COVID, there's a lot of Zoom and Teams recordings, but there's not that many most of the time. And the most valuable process information in enterprise is typically not captured in videos. It's not even captured in documents. It lives somewhere else. And that place is in the heads of your most valuable team members, your most valuable employees. And I'm sure you can all think of that one person. Maybe they're on the RevRec team or Deal Desk. And you don't know exactly what they do, but you know it's really important and that life would be very hectic without them. And that's the tribal knowledge, the institutional knowledge that keeps things running. And so the problem statement for us was, how do we capture this tribal knowledge in an easy and seamless way and not ask people to go do Zoom meetings all the time or Teams meetings? And so we're really, really excited to launch today a technology that we've been testing for a long period of time that we call the AI Interviewer. It is a completely new way of interacting with technology in the enterprise. It is voice first. So it will just talk to you instead of you having to grab somebody else or do a recording yourself. And instead of boring you with a description of this, I'd love to just show you how it works. It's a slightly sped up demo because I don't want to keep you all here listening to a long interview. But what you're going to hear is the interviewer speaking to one of our team members, asking her questions about a process. And so without further ado, here's what it looks like.
Hi, I'm your friendly architect AI interviewer. Looks like we'll be focusing on reviewing sales documents after a deal is closed. Let's start with some high-level questions. Can you provide an overview of the process?
Yes. So my team is having to manually review all sales documentation after a deal is closed, ensuring that the data matches across the documentations, as well as what's in our CRM.
Understood. What's your business objective for documenting this process more thoroughly?
We are really looking for ways to streamline this process, find efficiency, and even automation opportunities.
That makes sense. What are the main goals or intended outcomes of this process?
To really ensure that the data is accurate and clean before it gets into our ERP.
Great. What primary inputs are required to execute this process effectively? Are there specific data points or resources involved?
I'm not sure if I understand your question. Can you please clarify?
Of course. I'm asking what information, data, or resources do you need to have in hand to start this process? For example, sales contracts, CRM data.
Yep, so I do need to get the CRM data, order form, MSAs, all the deal-related documentation to start my review.
Sounds great. Now let's go through your process in detail, starting from the beginning. What initiates the process?
When a deal is marked as closed won within our CRM, it goes into the stage finance and accounting review, in which my team will come in and review the opportunity as well as all the documentations that's living within that opportunity.
Thanks for explaining that. What specifically does your team check for in the CRM and the documentation? Are there key data points or discrepancies you're on the lookout for?
Yes. Before I actually dig in deeper about the discrepancies, I would love to take a quick pause. I need a little bit of an energy booster. Can you tell me a quick joke about finance transformation?
Absolutely. Why did the finance team embrace digital transformation? Because they realize spreadsheets can only excel so far. All right, ready to dive back into the process?
OK, so it doesn't have the best sense of humor ever, but it gets the job done. What's really interesting about this, as you could tell, is it's very conversational. It's not stiff. It's not robotic. It's always available for you. So there's no more calendar chaos and calendar gymnastics of having to get 6 people involved in a process all in the same call together, and only one of them is speaking at any given time. It's always available. There's no judgment. There's no pressure. Often what we found is on these larger calls, it's very hard to be honest and truthful about what you do if your boss is sitting right there watching you. I honestly thought when we launched this feature that people would go, oh, it's kind of robotic. Like, I don't want to talk to a machine. To our surprise, what they told us is it actually feels very organic, and it's even likable and easy to talk to. You're putting in 50% or less of the effort, because instead of having to have 2 people present, you only have the interviewee, the process owner, present, but you're getting 100% or more of the value. It asks the right questions. We've trained it a lot over time to understand what types of questions to ask finance and accounting professionals, and really to hunt for exceptions. And you saw it do that in the video, where Sin Young said, hey, I just check in the CRM, and it said, well, what exactly do you do in the CRM? Because we all know it's those small details, it's the 10% of exceptions that create 90% of the complexity. So it's really going to go out of its way to look for that. And then finally, we built a little widget around this that allows you to assign to many, many process owners on your team. So if you're a value stream owner, or if you're on a transformation team, you can assign out to 100-odd process owners or more. All of them will just get email invites, and all they need to do is come in, record their process, and they're done. And so for the first time, not only can you interview much faster, but you can massively parallelize and scale this up. And so after we deployed this, we found that we had removed one bottleneck and inadvertently created another. It was now so easy to create high-quality documentation that for the first time, our customers were flooded with high-quality documentation. A good problem to have at first, but a problem nonetheless. If you have 500 PDFs or SOPs, what do you do with that? How can you infer insights into that level of information? And so it was clear to us that the next challenge, what our customers were asking for, is help me organize all this information. Don't just give me a bunch of documents. So the second feature that we want to launch today is called the Enhanced Process Hierarchy. It's able to organize the information in your value stream to a much higher level than was possible before. Here's how it works. When you log in, you get a bird's eye view of all of the processes across your organization or across your value streams, neatly organized into a hierarchy. The way that we create this is during the implementation phase, we're able to take any existing structure that you have. So that could be SharePoint, it could be Google Drive, it could even be a spreadsheet if that's where your processes are logged. And we have an AI system that allows us to convert that into something within the Klarity architect. If you don't have a process hierarchy, or you're not thrilled with your process hierarchy, we're able to just use industry best practices and AI to manufacture one for you. But either way, you're able to get a really high-quality process hierarchy very fast, so that when you log in and you're assigning these processes out, it's very neatly organized. If you drill down into one of these processes, you're not just hit by a document anymore. You get this page kind of describing the process at a glance, 30,000-foot view, if you will. And there's this interesting little bit where you'll notice that it's kind of extracting these key attributes about the process, and it's finding this quantitative information. How often is this process done? Every time we do it, let's say it's invoice processing, how long does it take to do one iteration of that? This is really, really, really helpful information to have. And you can imagine that when it's aggregated, it gives you a sense of where the time is being spent. You're probably wondering, well, this sounds great, but where the heck does this information come from? And the answer is that we have the interviewer just ask for it, because your team is already taking the time to talk to the interviewer, so we might as well just ask them. So much like a really good business analyst, it'll just weave these questions into its script of, okay, well, thanks, I understand the steps. How long does each of those take you? What is the annual volume? And if they give ranges because they don't know exactly, that's perfectly fine. And so without having to go and integrate with a million different systems of yours, we're able to give you this really crisp, consolidated view of all of your processes in a neat hierarchy format, along with key metadata fields for all of them. So you're able to get a sense of, again, where the volume lies, where the work is being done. So that's the new process hierarchy. We tailor-make it for your company using a suite of AI tools that we have internally. We're able to capture standardized process attributes, and we can customize this as well. So if there's other process attributes, if you want to capture, for example, process satisfaction in CSAT or composite risk score, we can add all of those in. It gives you a bird's eye view with the ability to drill down further. And we've built it to grow and evolve with your company. So it's natural that over the coming years, as your revenue doubles or triples, hopefully, your processes will actually grow in complexity. They have to, they should. And so if an L3 process becomes an L4 and then one day has an L5, this process hierarchy is very easy to modify and change, so it's not stagnant. So we realized that while it's great to have a hierarchy, even an individual process is not static. And maintenance is really hard. In fact, the better your process documentation, the harder maintenance gets. If you just have a one-page overview, it's very easy to keep that up to date. But if you have a 30-page, really detailed SOP that you can use for training, it actually makes maintenance very, very difficult. And so our third feature for today is document update. It's a brand new way to be able to keep your documentation up to date in just minutes. Here's how it works. So here's an example of an SOP in our application. All you need to do to update it is just upload an additional snippet or a snapshot. The best way to do this is just with another video. You could do a quick interview recording, and you don't have to re-record the entire process. So if you've already told us, for example, how RevRec looks at your company, and maybe what changes that there's an additional level of review above a $1 million threshold, you only need to give it that additional information. So it can be as little as 2 or 3 minutes. And then what it's going to do is figure out how that new video of yours relates to the original documentation. So you don't have to go in and prompt it and give it an explanation of how they relate to each other. It's going to do all of that by itself. And what you're going to get as output is a document with red lines embedded. This took us a long time to figure out how to do, but it was important to us to be able to do it because if we just give you a new document, the burden of validating that is huge, and it's on the user. It's very hard to do that. What this instead does is, like an analyst, it'll show you exactly what it changed and give you very fine-grained control to be able to approve or reject each change. It'll work with diagrams, with screenshots, with every part of your document. So from start to finish, the entire thing is going to be updated. So that's how documentation update will work in the architect. It allows you to update your documentation in minutes. It only needs a really quick video. You don't have to re-record the entire thing. It gives you detailed track changes that you can approve or reject or even bulk approve. So if we put all of this together, what we've really built here is a comprehensive digital twin of the way that your organization works. It's all of the processes organized in a way that they can be updated. And this allows a number of things. First and foremost, it allows you to unblock your transformation teams. They can use this digital twin to get to the execution and ROI stage much faster. It reduces key person risk and training time. It allows you to identify pain points. And you can even automate some of your compliance documentation to build out SOX narratives and SOX process flows, and so forth. I'm super excited to say all of this is going to be available on May 26th. And I'm very grateful also to many of our design partners, our alpha and beta testers who are in the audience today. Wouldn't be possible without you, so thank you for that. And you'll kind of notice that the alignment is a little messed up here. That's not an accident, because we have one more thing. Before we close the books here, there's one more thing that I want to talk to you all about. So we started with the vision of unlimited transformation, which was a really bold thing to say. And what we've showed you is a revolutionary technology that builds a digital twin. It does AI interviews, so it unblocks you from intake. It can identify process pain points and automatically build documentation. So in other words, it's giving you a lot of visibility, an unprecedented amount of visibility. But there's another set of questions that we haven't quite answered or even asked. The big picture questions. How do we build a strategic roadmap for a transformation project? How do we find multi-process inefficiencies, which is usually where the biggest inefficiencies hide? How do we do scenario modeling? If there's a change in the macroeconomic environment, how do we figure out what the downstream impact on our business is going to be? That's what Insights is about, and it's fundamentally a different thing than just having visibility. It's visibility plus judgment. What we've seen is that by creating this digital twin, we're shifting the bottleneck from being the documentation phase over to the insights phase. So the burden on the transformation teams now is how do you use this elaborate digital twin to actually create the insights that you need to get to the execution and ROI stage? And so the question to us, to all of us, is, well, how do we give these teams superpowers? What can we do to allow them to operate at 100 times the efficiency to identify these insights and to build action plans? And so for our last feature of the day, I'm very excited to show you all Architect Insights. Architect Insights is doing exactly what you think it does. It gives your transformation team superpowers so they can bridge this gap between a digital twin and execution and ROI and do everything in between. It works in 2 very simple steps. You have to define your objectives to start off, and that could be anything: closing the books, M&A integration, order to cash transformation, and then it'll generate AI reports for you and action plans that allow you to move into the execution phase really quickly. Let's dig into this a little bit. We start, of course, with creating your objectives. There's a whole set of default objectives baked into the application based on what we've seen across our customers and the industry. Things like, of course, accelerating financial close, M&A integration, various value chain transformations. You can, of course, add your own as well. It'll ask you a couple of quick questions about what is the objective, what are the KPIs against that objective, so it gets a really good sense of what you're trying to accomplish. And then it'll do this interesting thing where it'll say that it's going to get web context. Now, what that means is it's going to go to the internet and do a deep research about anything that could be relevant, not just your company, but to that specific objective within your organization. And it's going to go through 10Ks, 10Qs if your company is public, any other credible sources, and be able to create a picture of relevant facts that it got. Now, all of this, of course, we want you to validate, want you to review. Obviously, just because something's online doesn't make it fact. But it's able to save you lots of time that you'd otherwise have to spend giving it this macro-level picture of your organization. And now for the fun part. Having designed your objectives, it'll actually automatically generate transformation reports for you. So here's how it works. Intuitively, we don't want it to just spit out a transformation report start to finish. That wouldn't work well. Rather, what it does, like an excellent analyst team, it's going to break down the problem statement into bits. It'll start by developing the strategic North Star. Based on the objective that you stated, where are we trying to head? It'll articulate the pain point back to you so you can make sure that it's headed in the right direction, question some of the underlying assumptions. Next, it's going to analyze your current state. Across the hundreds of processes that you have, where are the bottlenecks? Where are the pain points as it relates to the process as it relates to the objective that you stated? And then it'll generate opportunities for you. We've given it the knowledge and the awareness of a whole set of varied recommendations across people, process, technology, risk, and governance. And so you'll find that it'll make really good, holistic, informed recommendations. And finally, it can even generate a roadmap for you, end-to-end. So it gives you everything that you need to get to that execution stage with confidence and with ease. You also have the ability to generate instant insights. Accelerating transformation projects obviously is great, but a lot of times there are pressing questions being asked of you that you need to answer in the moment. There have been a whole bunch of examples of this recently. With the application of tariffs, well, what impact does that have on the business? If interest rates change tomorrow, what do we need to do about that? If I find out that a system is being ripped and replaced or a vendor is deprecating something, what is the downstream impact of all of that? And so you can also run the Insights module in this instant mode where you can just ask it really quick questions and get immediate responses from it in real time. It only takes about 1 or 2 minutes to run. The last thing that I want to highlight here is what separates this feature is the depth of what it produces. You've all used AI. It's not hard to get it to spit out something, or even to get it to create some kind of a report, but to get it to create the right something, to really understand your processes and to go into the right level of depth, that's what's really hard. This feature excels at going down to that level of detail. It's able to review hundreds of processes in a really detailed, regimented way. It's very good at cross-pattern identification, at finding out that maybe even across different value streams, there's 2 people or 2 teams doing very similar activities that could collaborate to increase efficiencies, or that the same system is being used in completely different ways, or that we're accomplishing the same objective using automation in one case and manually in another. These really important, well, low-hanging fruit once you see them, but very, very hard for us as human beings to be able to detect. It'll create informed recommendations for you, where it'll actually cite its evidence. It'll even do an ROI calculation, and this is using that metadata that we talked about earlier. So it's able to do this in a numerically informed, quantitative way. And it'll list all of the assumptions that it makes. For example, if it's recommending that you can automate some element of document review, it'll tell you that, well, I think this is going to create 30% increase in efficiency, and you can audit that and say, no, I think that's overly optimistic or it's pessimistic, but it'll give you all of those assumptions in a really transparent way. And so to summarize, Architect Insights will first give you unprecedented breadth across all of your value streams. No longer do you have to pick to transform only a narrow slice and only a narrow place. You can now do it everywhere all at once. And for any type of objective, closing the books faster, any value chain transformation, ERP modernization, or other platform modernization projects, it can work for any type of objective. It can go to extreme detail and depth and give you reports that are at the cognitive level that you need to actually make decisions, and with the level of interpretability and visibility that you can critique it and ascertain for yourself whether you want to pursue that direction or not. And of course, speed. Perhaps the biggest value proposition of this is being able to take you from 6 months down to mere days, to go from a blank architect account with 0 processes all the way to documenting your processes, setting up your objectives, and generating insights can be done in just over 3 weeks. It is really that fast. And it only gets better. For every subsequent insight, because we're using AI, you already have that digital twin. So for every subsequent insight, it's even faster to leverage the work that you've already done. And so again, our vision with this is that we can give your team superpowers to go between having a digital twin and to actually executing on transformation projects. As CTO of an AI company, I'd be remiss to not speak about security and safety a little bit. It's top of mind for us in everything that we build. We have a very strict policy that we never train on any of your data, and none of our sub-processors do the same. So none of your data will ever end up in an LLM or part of a training run in any capacity. We have strict zero data retention agreements with all of our LLM vendors. So not only will your data not be trained upon, it'll actually be deleted immediately after. The Architect and Klarity is SOC 2 Type 2 certified. The beauty of using technology this way is you don't need integrations anymore. It supports integrations, but you don't need integrations to get all the value we just talked about. And what that means is you can then get value on day one. The overwhelming majority of Architect customers are getting value on day one, immediately after they start using it. And finally, there's no big brother paradigm here. We don't believe that AI should be used to look over employees' shoulders and audit them in a negative capacity. We believe that it should be used to give people superpowers. All of this will be available on May 26th, including the new Insights module. And so to take it back, we want to take you from a world of transformation scarcity, where these were the most feared, the most expensive, the most selective projects, to a world of transformation abundance, where we think of every work stream, every value chain, every process as being in a state of continuous transformation. And so our parting question to you is, if you had 100 times the capacity that you have today, what would you transform? Thank you so much.